The aforementioned Sharika Jackson checking in at number 1. No surprise there. Then Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, 2. Dina Asher-Smith, 3. Steiner, 4. Elaine Thompson-Herah, 5. Gabby Thomas, 6. Julian Alfred, 7. Tamara Clark, 8. Favor Ofili, 9. And then Munjinga Kambunji in 10th.
I can just hear the entire country of Jamaica screaming, you put Elaine Thompson-Herah 5th? The Olympic champion 5th? Behind Abby Steiner, who has never won a medal at the world championship level, even though she has won 2 medals, 4x1 and 4x4.
She has, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, you have to look at what happened last year and what to expect this year. And I think people are forgetting Abby Steiner had a unique year where she still got, she's 6th or 5th in the final?
5th.
She was 5th. Mm-hmm. But that was with starting her season in a December of 2021, running like a 300 in Louisville or something like that. Basically doing a long NCAA season where you're peaking in March, peaking for NCAAs, then peaking for USAs. The fact that she was able to still hold on to that, I think represents that if she didn't have to do all those other peakings, she probably could have at least got 3rd, I think. I think in a perfect day, if Worlds was on in June instead of late July, I think Abby Steiner gets at least 3rd in the women's 200. She's run more times, fast times, than any of the other women except for, I guess, Sharika. Like, you look at the amount of repeat sub-22-second performance she's done, it's very impressive. And it's a kind of, you got to give a little credit to the now. Yes, Elaine Thompson-Herah has the phenomenal resume, the career resume, an all-time great resume. But, so eventually, change happens, and I think Abby Steiner, we're not even putting her top 3, but putting her above Elaine Thompson-Herah, I think is pretty controversial because Elaine Thompson-Herah is one of the GOATs coming out of Jamaica and 5th. But how did she finish in the 200 last year?
She was 7th.
7th, so.
Yeah. But you could flip it around. You said Steiner didn't have a good race at Worlds. You could say the same thing about Thompson-Herah.
Yeah,
the rest of her season in the 2, her best time, or actually her fastest time, was the semis at Worlds, 21:97. That was her only time under 22 seconds. She went on. She won Commonwealth Games, though, so it's not as if she just disappeared. Steiner did, you're right, the long season probably factored in, but because she had a long season, she got a bunch of opportunities, too.
Yeah.
She had that college schedule, so she cranked out a ton of fast times. If I was to set the over-under right now for medals in the 200 for the Jamaican women, it would probably be, you'd put it at 2.5, wouldn't you, basically?
And I would hammer the under.
Yeah.
They're not sweeping.
They could. I think one of Abby, Dina, or Gabby will get at least bronze. It's possible that a sweep is there. I don't think it's as strong of a lock. Also, in some of those other events, like we compare it to the U.S. men or in the 100 or the 200, where you have that 4th entrant. Now, maybe someone from Jamaica will pop up and be a clear 4th entrant. But on the U.S. side, the 4th best runner for the men in the 1 and the 2 was 5th. They're right there. Yeah, we argued about that one. I'm not going to say what I argued. I think people can tell like what Gordon argued on that one. So we had a little bit of back and forth and compromise. Thomas is interesting. Thomas injured at USA's, didn't make the team, but actually came back, ran really well, got 2nd at the Diamond League final. Alfred, she's got, if you're looking at the trending things, she's got an up arrow.
Yeah.
She's going up and up and up. And I can see in another month or so her continuing to climb after what she did indoors in the 2. Tamara Clark was really solid last year. Favor Ofili, of course, was incredible last year and ran some really good times already indoors this year. And then Kambunji, extremely solid.
So one exercise we're learning about as we go through these rankings, we've done the 100, the 800, and the 200. We put a lot of emphasis on the 2022 result in Eugene in July, right? Because we're like, that's the World Championship. That's how you decide the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But when can that not mean as much? Is it point it's going to mean everything up until the final? Or is there going to be a point when we're going to be able to like, yes, you did get 3rd at Worlds last year, but like you just aren't the 3rd best runner right now?
I think Sharika Jackson is going to get a lot of leeway this year.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need a lot of leeway because we see how fast she's already running.
Benefit of the doubt rankings.
Well, okay, so it kind of corresponds to the actual
So Sharika
ranking.
gets the most benefit of doubt.
But it's similar to Noah in the men's side because the mark they put up was just out there.
Yeah.
So if for some reason Noah loses early season to Kenny B or loses to Knighton or loses to DeGrasse, you're going to look at that differently because there's just a big gap between one and everybody else. If Sharika loses to Elaine Thompson or Shelly and Fraser Price, you're going to give them more of a benefit of the doubt. After number 1, though, 2 through, let's see what we say.
2 through 10.
Well, I'd say 2 through 6, maybe even 7 right now is really, really close.
Okay, yeah.
So if you get a bunch of Dina Asher-Smith versus Elaine Thompson-Hurrah matchups and they're going one direction, yeah, then you're going to throw out World Championships. At that point, doesn't mean anything because we're closer to these championships than we are to the previous ones. But someone like Jackson, because we all saw what she did, you're also thinking, all right, they're going to have – they can absorb a loss. They can absorb a bad stretch, and you're going to give them a little more leeway. Now, if they lose continually for a month, then you're going to start to discount that.
And we have precedent of this actually proving out last year. Elaine Thompson-Hurrah going into 2022 was like unanimous number 1. She just won the double gold.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then when she lost to Sharika, we gave a little bit of a benefit of doubt. We're like, oh, it's, well, you know.
Yeah, the story should have been how good Sharika was.
Yeah.
Instead it was, hey, is Elaine okay?
Yeah. But like it happened once and you're like, okay. And then it happened again. And then you realize, oh, Elaine Thompson-Hurrah is not 2021. She's having an off year. And it kind of represented, she did still medal in the 1, but she was 7th in the 200. And so I think there's going to be a point we're going to have markers. Like, what's our dates where we get to like?
Well, it's amount of races, and that's the problem with track is we don't get enough.
Sometimes they go 1 for 1, and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, we're going to put a bunch of weight into the Doha Diamond League in mid-June. We're still looking at that. In mid-July, we're still looking at that. Yeah, it's hard. I think because then you're going to factor in the people who don't race too. And, okay, how long do they stay on before you drop them off? Or the people who race off distance. Maybe we'll get a bunch of 100-meter times or we'll get more 400-meter times and you don't really know what to do with them. But I think it's clear Jackson's won. I know people are going to argue about those other ones, and I get it. I get the pushback, and you could default into just the gold, silver, bronze.
That's boring.
You could default into 1 through 8 basically from Worlds, but Alfred wasn't in Worlds. She deserves to be up there. That's a clear person who made the most of the indoor season.
Thomas wasn't, but she was injured.
Right, and you assume she's in that final. She's finishing around that spot, and it's easy. Thomas made it easy on us because then she came back after World Championships and ran with the best in the world. But also it's tough too because someone coming back, maybe a little fresher at the end of the season. There's some athletes who are running Euros and Commonwealth and World Championships. Someone were just running 2 of the 3. A lot of different directions that it went after Worlds. That's why Worlds is good to use because we all assume everybody is going with that in mind. Their training is geared towards that race in mind. If you use some of these other events to decide who number 1 is and who number 10 is, it can be misleading.